Hello, everybody. My name is Dratnos, and welcome to Ara-Kara, City of Echoes, one of the last two dungeons here on the War Within Alpha. This one's in the Nerubian place, so it's a nice Nerubian-themed dungeon. And you start off kind of descending into this webby area, and you've got a bunch of mini-bosses you need to kill to spawn the first boss. Now, importantly here, there are these like web bridges to go to the next place, you can see. And I tested, you'll see in a second here, but you can fall off of these. It's a little bit, tricky, right? Like, you're looking at some raid frames or whatever. You're just kind of minding your own business. You're walking around. Everything's looking normal. You don't notice the hole in front of you. You could have a little incident. These things happen. So watch out for that in this dungeon. That's thing number one. Discovery from Alpha. But yeah, okay, so this is a 3-boss dungeon, which is, in my opinion, pretty cool. I like this expansion just in general is full of 3-boss dungeons or 4-boss dungeons that are short for, like, often there will be boss at the end, for instance, of the 4-boss dungeons. So nice, I think, pacing improvement of this compared to the last couple expansions, which have had, a 3-boss dungeon or two, but have also often included 4s and 5s even. So I love the speeding up of this. This first area, we don't have too much mechanical to talk about. There's a couple of poisons that aren't too deadly in this area, but potentially in high M+. That'll be something to worry about. A couple of bleeds as well. We've got some webs that slow you down if you're standing in them. Some pulsing damage going on as well. Some crawlers that explode when they die and a little AoE around them. This is the first of the mini-bosses that you need to take out. It's kind of just suspended in the air from one of the webs up there, and does poison bolt casts and shoots out webs and frontals that you want to avoid, kind of like Waycrest Manor boss, sort of the Raw the Gluttonous a little bit. But yeah, so that's one of the 3 attendants. You can see the others are there kind of resonating away, and we need to get all 3 of them dead before we can fight the boss, which actually spawns on this platform that we are approaching now. But yeah, now we're starting the fight against the second attendant. It is also suspended from a web locked in this spot. Slightly different mechanics here. This one does call the brood, and it's going to spawn crawlers that sort of spawn. I think they fixate people, and they start just attacking them. I know on the boss there will be crawlers that spawn and fixate people and also kind of ramp up in damage over time. So I think that mechanic may be being taught by that mini-boss there. Then we have a little bit more trash to kill there. You can see there is a Nerubian that you can interact with just up at the top left there of the screen. We found one of those later as well. I think it's a tailoring interaction to use that Nerubian. Maybe skinning, but I think it's tailoring. I don't know exactly what it does. We didn't test this with professions, but there definitely is a little bit of that kind of profession, requires rank 25 in a profession to use it stuff in this dungeon. I was testing this dungeon, by the way, as a Resto Shaman. Last couple dungeons I've tested now on Resto Shaman. It's really fun. The Farseer hero talent tree, pretty fun. Here I test what happens if you get hit by the web spray. Not much, just does some damage and leaves behind the webbing on the ground, which predictably slows you if you stand in it. And I think it does that thing that Senarth webs do, where if you stand in it and you get up to 10 stacks, you get web wrapped, I think. But unlike the Senarth one, the debuff doesn't persist as soon as you leave the web. So as long as you leave the web before you get to 10 stacks, you are chillin'. But yeah, reasonable little bits of damage here. This dungeon, we kind of blasted through this in the next dungeon. So compared to, say, the Dawnbreaker, nothing felt too rough in here, but that may be alpha scaling change. Obviously, we're different levels than we were in that dungeon. And also just, any given week, the tuning on the alpha fluctuates somewhat wildly. So, but the version we were doing, this definitely felt like, more of the kind of walk in the park. Like, you can see how quickly the boss is getting melted here. So this boss, you've got ads that are spawning in, they're flying in, they're fixating people. The boss also does some pulsing AoE at different points, and there are also webs on the ground. But yeah, you can see there are those starved crawlers kind of waddling in. On Mythic, I think if those reach the boss will munch on them and get a damage amp. So I think that's a Mythic mechanic that we don't have here on the lower difficulties. And that is pretty much all there was to this fight that I could see from the Dungeon Journal, was that main mechanic and then just some pulsing damage. And other than that, first boss down. we're now on the move to the second boss, and again, gotta watch out for those holes in the bridges. I'm hyper vigilant now for those things. So a little bit of trash to get to this next area. We've got some blood workers, which are I don't think they're Nerubians. I'm not sure. Some kind of other maybe type of thing that they've got going on here. Maybe that's a flavor of Nerubian. I'm not sure. But you can see, yeah, there's like a poison volley. These brood or blood guards rather do a big like cone, this impale cone, or not cone, but like line attack that you want to dodge. And also some tank damage. There's that volley going off. That slam, brief like mini stun on the whole group, which is pretty annoying. There's not a way to interrupt that, I don't think. And yeah, the volleys, you can see nice animation on the mobs when they're casting their volley. But other than that, you're just kind of looking at a bunch of these mobs scattered between you and where you want to go next. We've got some assistants here as well. I'm not really sure what they do. You can see they've gotten kind of big and purpley. Extraction Strike is the ability they're doing, so it looks like probably just some tank dam. Hard to be sure, but that seems like the only thing they really do. So nice kind of mobs that aren't too threatening. It doesn't even look like they're really leaving behind a debuff on the tank or anything. There's another one of those Nerubians with which you can interact. You can see up over to the right, and I think we go and get that pulled. Yeah, you can see our paladins going over there and 1v1ing the guard over there, the stag shell. And yeah, so you can see interactable with mob. Going over to check it out now. And you can see it is indeed tailoring, Kazalgar tailoring that you need to get something out of that. Hopefully not something too impactful or important. And then we keep working our way through here. We've got the web mages. The poison they leave behind, I think, is just a heal absorb as well. Maybe it's a dot attached to the heal absorb. Not 1,000% sure. And the stag shell also, so the stag shells, it looks like they summon one of those blood guards if they get their alarm cast off. So probably need to stun those or stop that if you don't want to deal with extra blood guards, which I think you don't. Unless they give count, maybe an M+, you would let some of those summons go off. But even then, I feel like this mob is really annoying because of this slam they do where it stuns the whole group for, even stunning the whole group for like half a second is that's just so annoying. I think you don't want to deal with those if you can avoid it. So I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. I know it's already going to be a pretty short video, this dungeon, but I don't think there's really too much other than these mobs. I guess the boss is pretty close. Maybe we don't need to skip ahead a little bit. But yeah, you can see it's mostly just these same mobs in this area. Blood guards, web mages. There's a little patrol up and over to the right. And I think you could go around that way if you wanted to get to the boss, but you can also run through this building that we're looking at here. So that is how we end up doing it. And yeah, okay, so the poison volley is a heal absorb and a dot if it goes off. So presumably that'll be really nasty if you let it go off in, Mythic Plus type situations. If those numbers are both pretty high, pretty scary, it'll be probably a very important thing to make sure you're kicking. Okay, this is the second boss here, a noob Zekt. And they have a few mechanics you need to look out for on this fight. So Impale is kind of an amped up version of the trash mechanic. And then there's also this debuff that goes out. You can see our tank has a debuff. There's the swarm debuff. And when it expires, it leaves behind a cloud that will then sort of start going around. And that cloud will leave behind more of a dot if you're standing in it. So you want to make sure you're avoiding that. Nothing too nasty here. On Mythic, there are going to be ads spawning every 15 seconds that slowly, that'll try and root you. So those will probably need to get killed. And then once the boss reaches 100 energy, which I think might be based on health rather than time, I'm not sure, you need to get inside the Eye of the Storm here, which is pretty nasty because then you're going to have to be dodging the impales, you're going to have to be dodging the swarms with a much more constrained area. And if you stand outside there, you basically count as if you're standing in one of those swarms, and you take a ramping up dot, and that dot will persist for like 2 seconds upon leaving either the big outside area or the small one. Now here, if you listen carefully, when I was recording this, I actually had my mic included. There you can hear me cracking open a nice, refreshing soda can before then realizing, oh, a bar moved on my OBS that wasn't supposed to, and then muting my microphone. So that's the last bit of non-game audio that'll be heard from the recording end of this. But you can see again we have so we had to jump off after that boss because the gates didn't open. And there you can see, again, there's another of those tailoring mobs. But yeah, I think that's just a alpha bug, is that after you kill that boss, the gate doesn't open to let you go forward. So we had to die there. And now we make our way towards the last boss. You can see that last boss is already channeling down there. So very quick dungeon, all things considered. You know, a moderate amount of trash between bosses 1 and 2, but not even all that much. And then boss 3 is like right here. Now this area is interesting. So you have these carriers that are holding on to these vials of like ooze. If you hit the carriers, they'll drop the ooze as soon as they take any damage. If you walk into one of these ooze puddles, you will spawn a blood that will then root you and also start channeling damage on you. You gotta just kill them or, you know, free the person from them in some way in order to stop that from happening. But this is teaching us a boss mechanic, because during the boss, there will be a bunch of ads that are carrying these ooze, you know, canisters. And if you hit them, they'll drop the ooze canister and leave the puddle on the ground. And again, as soon as you walk into the puddle, it's going to create the ooze that will root you and start channeling damage onto you as well. So we have a big hauler here that seems pretty similar to those blood guards from earlier. It does have that slam that stuns the whole group. And we got a couple overseers here. I think they have a cast. And there's the last boss. Yeah, so these guys, looks like they have the venom volley, probably a similar effect to the one from earlier in this dungeon. Erupting webs, swirlies to dodge, just looks like. Looks like they maybe root you if they hit you. And then it's boss time after that. So yeah, last boss. Bunch of ads are going to exist that drop behind puddles. And there's not too much else to them initially, the ads that spawn, except they didn't seem to have nameplates on PTR. You just had to kind of click them. Okay, no, maybe they did have nameplates. I'm losing it. Yep, there you can see it does indeed have a nameplate, and then it loses it once it loses its thing that's carrying, and it just starts running away. But you can see it's left behind a puddle. The boss is also casting Venom Volley, uninterruptible here. And then the boss will do a big grip in, Cosmic Singularity. And this grip is powerful. You can try and run away from it, but it ain't gonna work. You're gonna get gripped back in at the end. It becomes a very strong grip at the end. So the way you're supposed to dodge that is to run into one of those pools and root yourself. On normal and heroic, I think you can do it. The whole raid can run into one. But on Mythic, each puddle will only root one person, so you'll each need to find a different puddle. You probably will need to try and get the blood workers to be dropping their stuff in a similar area, and then you run in, you root yourself, and you don't actually get gripped in, and presumably one-shot by the Cosmic Singularity if you actually are unrooted at the end. But yeah, that's it. That's all there is to the City of Echoes. A couple of trash packs off to the side we didn't deal with, and if you run down to this area, you get a stacking magic health damage per second effect on you that will very quickly kill you if you do need to get back to the start of the dungeon, which I did. So that's Ara-Kara, City of Echoes. Big fan of this dungeon. Love the pacing. I love short dungeons like this. So very, very cool one. I thought the bosses were pretty cool as well. I thought the mechanics worked out pretty nicely, and I'm looking forward to playing around with it. Maybe some more. Maybe once Mythic testing comes out and the bosses live for a little bit longer, get to see more of those mechanics. But yeah, that's it for this video. Hope you've enjoyed. Thank you so much for watching. See you in the next one. Bye.